What if the voice that's holding you back isn't the voice of other people? What if it's your own? What if the reason you're struggling to become the person you want to be is because every day you're fighting the very person trying to get there? I think one of the biggest lies people believe is that being hard on yourself creates success, that criticizing yourself creates growth, that shame creates change. But after years of pursuing my dream, I've learned something very different. You cannot hate yourself into transformation, because the person you are becoming is not built through punishment. They're built through partnership. For years, I was incredibly hard on myself, especially when it came to social media. I spent years trying to figure out my purpose, trying to figure out my message, trying to figure out how I could make a meaningful impact on the world. If I'm being honest, sometimes I would look back and think, wish I would have figured this out sooner. I wish I would have started sooner. I wish I knew then what I know now. I would compare my timeline, I would compare my growth, I would compare my progress, compare where I thought I should be. And what I eventually realized was something painful. I was spending more time criticizing myself than helping myself, more time judging myself than improving myself, more time focusing on what wasn't happening than focusing on what could happen. And that changed everything. Most people think self-criticism is motivation. It's not. It's distraction. Think about it. If you spend an hour telling yourself how far behind you are, that's an hour you're spending not building your future. If you spend an hour focusing on your mistakes, that's an hour you're not spending creating solutions. The irony is many people are exhausted, but not because they're working too hard, but because they're fighting themselves all day. And eventually I realized something. The energy I was using to criticize myself could be used improving myself. And that realization changed everything. Marilyn Monroe is one of the most recognized women in history. People admired her beauty, her presence, her charisma, her success. Yet beneath all of that was someone who struggled with their self-worth. And I think her story teaches something powerful. External validation cannot create internal peace. No amount of applause can replace self-acceptance. No amount of success can replace self-compassion, because if achievement alone created self-love, every successful person would feel fulfilled, and that's simply not the truth. Many people spend their whole life chasing validation, believing that once they reach a goal, they'll finally feel worthy. But worthiness was never waiting at the finish line. It was always available. The question was whether they could see it. Viktor Frankl survived one of the darkest periods in human history. Yet one of the most powerful lessons he taught the world was this: we don't always control what happens to us, we control how we respond to it. Think about that. Most people spend their entire lives waiting for certain circumstances. Perfect timing, perfect condition, perfect confidence. But transformation rarely begins when circumstances change. Transformation begins when perspective changes. And one perspective shift changed my life. I stopped asking myself, why am I not there yet? And started asking what I can do today. Suddenly, everything felt lighter because I stopped fighting the present and started building the future. Michael Phelps became one of the most decorated Olympians in history. The world saw medals, records, victories, and success. But what many people didn't see were the struggles he experienced internally, because achievement and self-love are not the same thing. You can accomplish extraordinary things and still feel like you're not enough. You can reach incredible milestones and still criticize yourself. And that's important, because many people believe, when I reach my goal, I will finally be happy. When I reach my goal, I will finally feel worthy. When I reach my goal, I'll finally love myself. You'll take the same inner critic with you to every future success. Eventually, I got tired, not of my dreams and not of the work, not of the process. I got tired of fighting myself. I realized I had two choices. I could continue spending my energy criticizing where I was, or I could spend that same energy becoming who I wanted to be. And And I chose the second option. I started trusting the process more. I started having patience. I stopped allowing numbers to determine my value. I stopped using progress as proof of worthiness. Something incredible happened. My growth started compounding because I wasn't quitting emotionally every time my results were slow. I was in the game. People think they need to become perfect before they move forward. That's backwards. You move forward first. You improve along the way. Nobody starts at the finished version of themselves. Nobody knows exactly what they're doing. Nobody arrives perfectly prepared. You figure it out through action, not through perfection. And I think one of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves: permission to be a work in progress, permission to fail, permission to learn, permission to grow, permission to be human. The moment I started changing was the moment I stopped attacking myself. I stopped trying to shame myself into becoming better. I stopped trying to criticize myself into success. I stopped believing that my worth was tied to a number. And I started trusting the process. Because transformation doesn't happen through self-hatred. Transformation happens through self-respect. You cannot bully yourself into becoming someone you love. You can encourage yourself. You can love yourself. You can believe in yourself. You can forgive yourself. You can keep showing up for yourself. And over time, those small acts of self-compassion become a foundation of an entire new life. The goal was not to become more perfect. The goal was to become more fully yourself. And that journey begins the moment you stop fighting who you are and start partnering with who you are becoming.